Hey, it's Brian of Team Sex Panther, and I'm going to be doing another one of my deck profiles today. Now, this is my Galactic Beast ZEAL deck for Dimension Police. Currently, it's one of my favorite decks because it will basically destroy everything that failed to work perfect. So, really good card, or a really good deck. This is my Larva Beast ZEAL. It is my starter. When the grade 1 ZEAL rides on top of it, search the top 7 cards for the 2 or 3. And if it wasn't the grade 1 ZEAL, call it to rearguard. I'll explain that later. Next up, 4 heal triggers. Justice Rose over the Evil Dimension Police, just because I like the artwork of this one better. Next up, I run 5 draw triggers. This deck works mainly as a rush deck, so I don't have a whole lot of cards in my hand to guard with early game, so every little bit helps. However, I do need the other triggers in my deck more, so no more than 5, but that may just be me. Next up, probably the second most important aspect of this deck, stand triggers. Critical triggers, yeah, they work fine in this deck, but nowhere near as good as stand triggers. Your opponent will not necessarily fear you getting a critical trigger as a grade 1. However, they will fear your stand triggers throughout this game. Next up, I run 4 of the grade 1 ZEAL. If the 0 is in the soul, he gains plus 1000 on Vanguard. And then when the 2 rides on top of him, it reduces the opponent's Vanguard down 3000. Which means, if they are a grade 1, anything they ride will be reduced to a 5 at most. And then, if they have an 8K grade 2, and you went second, they will, again, follow the same rules, and this deck will exploit the crap out of them for it. Next up, I run 4 Caranoid Daisy, the 8K beater. Since this deck plays as Rush, early game, best possible attacker. And then, when you have your limit break active, if you maxed it out, everything in this game can be hit by this 8. So really good card, great booster. And the reason I said I'll explain when I move that away, is that if you start out, and let's say you didn't get the grade 1 ZEAL, but you had that, and let's say another copy of it, you can attack with this column, stand trigger comes into play, it's another 9K attacker. So, works better than most other ones of its kind. Of course, that may just be my opinion again, but really good. Next up, I run 3 Glory Maker. If it's not a cross ride that was hit by ZEAL's limit break, at most it will be a 6K, which means this can boost a lot of cards in this deck, hit the 16, be perfectly fine. So it's a pretty fair rearguard booster, and then when it boosts the Vanguard, 10K boost at limit break. So, when your opponent is reduced to a 5 or a 6, they will have to guard your 20 to 21 Vanguard. They are not going to be happy about that. And finally for grade 1s, I run Diamond Days, 3 copies, like in most of my decks. However, it's not necessity in ZEAL. Because you're playing this as rearguard, occasionally, I've tried it both with and without perfect guards. It runs generally the same, but at least with this you have the option to completely guard something. You don't have that if you don't run it. So, not necessity, but too good not to use. Next up, Devourer of Planet ZEAL, the grade 2. Basically, exact same skills as the grade 1. When the 3 rides on top of it, the opponent will be reduced down 3000. 9K attack, so on rearguard, it will still hit for decent numbers. All around good. Next up, I used 4 Dimensional Robo Dialady. The reason I run 4 of this is, on rearguard, if it attacks the Vanguard and it hits, I can choose another Dimension Police rearguard and give it plus 3000. Which means, If, for example, I had this on the other side of my rear guard, this hit, this attacks for 12, I get a stand trigger, it attacks for 17. Your opponent has to waste too much shield or take that damage. This deck is all about giving that damage. So, following that, I run only 3 of the 10k beater. Very good card. If your opponent is reduced to a 5, they need 10k shield to block it, so it can be boosted by a trigger and make them waste 15k shield to block it. Basically, the whole point of this is just to beat down the opponent or make them waste that shield. The reason there's only 3 of this is, I have tried the deck with 4 of it, but it needs 4 Die Lady. And because you need 8 grade 3s and you just don't have the grade 1 room, you have to go down to 3. Next up, the star of the deck, Galactic Beast ZEAL. Gains plus 1000 while the grade 2 is in the soul. And then once per turn, as a limit break, you can counterblast 2, and your opponent is reduced by 1000 for each of your Dimension Police rear guards. Basically what it means is that to guard all 3 of your attacks, your opponent needs 15k shield at the minimum. So, they will be guarding with at least 6 to 7 cards from their hand. If your opponent perfect guards this, yay, they've wasted 2 cards on this, 2 cards on this, 2 cards on this. Stand triggers are there for that reason, to make them waste even more or to deal that damage. If your opponent survives the first limit break, they will not easily survive the second. Or by some miracle they lived until you were able to do a third. Too good of a card. Next up, I use Lady Justice. Reason I use her is because if by some miracle I don't have Zeal in my hand by my grade 3 ride, she's better as a ride than Miracle Beauty. Basically so you don't have to waste that Miracle Beauty. But if she's on rear guard, and for example she was hit with Die Lady's skill, so she'll be a 15 attacking the Vanguard, and then if she stands she'll be a 20k attacking the Vanguard. Still hits for amazing numbers. So I think too good not to run 2 of. That may just be me. But then lastly, Miracle Beauty. Originally the whole reason stand triggers were put in this deck, now not so much the case. But this is the best rear guard for this deck because if it stands during the battle phase, it will stand its booster. So it will be a 16, or realistically a 14 to 18 attacking the first time. And it stands, it'll be a 19 to a 23 attacking the next time. Really good card. That's the entire reason your opponent will fear stand triggers in Zeal. Just too good not to use. So that's my Dimension Police stack. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.